постараюсь рассказать вам, почему CSP это полезно. Если вы в своих проектах еще не используете CSP, то постараюсь убедить вас, что это нужно, это круто, вливайтесь. Немножко обо мне. Кто я такой?
Words about me. I'm Konstantin Yermakov. I'm the head of the project security. I've been working in this field for more than 13 years. Over the last 2 years, I worked for Ramblin and Co. and we tackle SLDLC, and we do the CSP implementation. Rambler and Co. is top 1 media holding in Russia. We are huge. We have lots of different teams. It's very hard to implement a general process. So CSP is a process which is very difficult to quickly roll out with all of the processes. CSP is the content security policy. Content security policy, which goes to the customer's browser, which understands which content can be downloaded from which domain.
Любые медиа с default SRC. Default SRC это у нас
For example, from default CRC, we can load any content, like, for example, example.com. So these are the ones that are fine, and the third report will not go through, so the browser would understand. So such instructions are prohibited, and I will not take it. So it's all clear with content security policy, CSP, so we can track XSS, we can detect clickjacking, which are more rare, or any other data injection, the injection of some images or video files, any kind of media that you wouldn't want to see on your page. What we actually need for a start of this process, first of all, we need to start with the implementation instruction. Implementation instruction is the document that we will send to those who will be implementing CSP. So those who are either working in operations or development, we'll speak about it more in detail, but basically this should be an easy-to-read document which explains what, how, and why. CSP server for logs. So, for example, report URI. We give a link, a URL, which will be sent, which will see all of the violations to. One of the main elements of the CSP server is just we need it for debugging and tracking down the incidents, for storage of logs, etc. And we have a roadmap for implementation. We understand how we implement this process, how to scale this process up, to understand these reasons to other teams, and we'll separately consider them. Implementation instructions, so we put it down. Why we need it here. We set the template CSP, what it protects from and why it's safe and why it would not violate the principles of the project. We put the principles of the proper, optimal and bad examples. We set the template CSP, a template which would be used for them to quick start a project, and we sent the directives which also required to tune up. For example, some media, some custom GS. We write it all down so that it can be very quickly used. If this is very unclear and it's not clear how it should be done, so here is a GitHub picture. You can use lots of tools there on how to very quickly assemble a CSP, a draft CSP, so to speak, and then we launch it and edit it a little bit. With Google Chrome and Firefox, we have extensions with the draft CSP. We tested it a little bit and we see that everything works. We just adapt it a little bit and this instruction will be there. What's this CSP server for accepting the logs? We use this container like the CSP collector. So here is the link to GitHub. For those of you who may find some bugs there, we can feed it to Bug Bounty, use it there. We have a very simple picture. The CSP report goes to the cluster, it gets processed there, and there is one error which is missing here. It sends all of the reports, and then we put it through Cloud Analytics, we alert it, and we track down some garbage information, so we sieve it through. CSP roadmap is how we implement CSP for our projects. We started from the internal admin, internal projects, external admins, small special projects, and ultimately we end up with all of the projects. We start with the internal admins because they are the more critical ones in our projects, because they undermine the rest. And here is the thing which does not require lots of external GS, external media. And we can implement it here in a very quick and simple fashion, and you cover some critical points very quickly. 20% effort covers 80% of critical web. At this stage, you can also test all of the implementation process as well. So there are developers that can be pulled into this process. They understand that it does not take too much time, that it's profitable. For example, if you did have a case previously, for example, you get this access to the admin, how this CSP embedded into the admin, and it's a good hacking case, and that's how you protect against these attacks. So we expand, and ultimately we end up with the full coverage of all of our solutions. But there are some stumbling blocks here as well. What would be the stumbling blocks? Of course, we need to always log the IP sources to the CSP server, because it will help you track down the incidents and help you with the debugging, because sometimes there may be malfunctions with the CSP server, so you just check and verify the browser and why it was done. You'd filter and sieve the garbage. You sieve out the garbage, because if you have a big external project and we start having different bots and old browsers trying to log in, normally they'd bring in quite a lot of garbage. There are some good articles about how to sieve through this garbage and which type of garbage we have, and at the GitHub we have a CSP WTF article which explains the special effects in CSP, which bots can hack your system, and how it can filter, how you can filter it through properly. Automatic notifications, so that the security expert is notified on time if this CSP is tuned in a bad way, or if we have an incident on a project. In order to check and verify CSP, we can start an SSL DSC cycle and find whether we have it in place as CSP. And I mentioned the instructions previously. And now I would like to come up with a couple of interesting cases, what else can be done and what can be detected through XSS. For example, there are some events that are related to a certain scope of IPs, strange GS, for example, that we've never ever seen. We've never ever taken this into account. Some Chinese domains, we take this domain and we track down the employee who's done all that. Obviously, there is some kind of an extension, some app that is malicious, and it could be infected through phishing. It could do a lot of bad things, damage, do a lot of damage. Another case, it's supply chain attacks in a corresponding project. For example, in a project you use a CDN which sends a certain set of media like images, commercial, information, and you know which exact of commercial media should have in place. So this media and only these media are available to you. So if this CDM does not work properly, then other media will penetrate, like some promotional videos and other things. So your project may be protected, that you can get access only to that media that is allowed in your system. So basically, this is it. That's my story. Any questions you may have?
Вопрос.
Do you have any questions? By the way, if you have a question, you'd always be able to come up to me after this session, and I would like to thank you for your attention.